A little? I mean, seriously, magic, floating pony heads that can store dimensional scissors in their... I don't even know where she keeps that thing, and teachers being turned into trolls and keeping their job? All that just being a little weird. Hello interwebs, I'm Eric and welcome to TheLooneyTurtle. Star vs. the Forces of Evil is an enjoyable show that I'm going to spoil the heck out of, so leave now if you don't like spoilers. Arbitrary warnings aside, this show has a full roster of antagonists, particularly monsters, who have been striving to get Star's wand. It actually got me thinking about why they want the wand so badly, and more importantly, why the monsters and mewmens don't just live in the same settlement.
Because they're evil!
Well, I'm not so sure of that.
Why?
It's become more than apparent over the past season that the monsters aren't really evil per se, as they go to the same store as Star, they can travel between dimensions, and in the small scenes we see of them talking to each other, they can be very relatable characters. Monsters are prideful, they can feel replaced, and they get hurt from time to time, but come back because they feel obligated to do so. For a large portion of the first season, the monsters were just seen as the villains because they're the antagonists and Star sees them as evil, so they must be. This is further compounded when Monster Claus not only fails to become good, but when he gets his hands on the wand, it transforms into a demonic eye. Admittedly, there is some nuance to this scene as he shifts between good and evil, but in the end he sides with the monsters. This episode reinforces the idea that the monsters are clearly just the bad guys. But then in Independence Day, we discovered that it might be a situation of circumstance.
How? The monsters lost and nothing really changed, right?
Well, kinda. What we're told, and see in some of the brief scenes of the book, is that Muni was originally settled by the monsters.
What? But she said that the mewmens settled Muni.
Yes, but she also said that the monsters
attacked the innocent mewmens to re-steal Muni for themselves.
Re-steal? If the monsters rose up to steal the land from the mewmens, then everything checks out, but re-steal implies that someone stole the land before them. This leads me to believe that the mewmens stole the monster homeland, and then the monsters wanted to re-steal it for some reason. It could be because the mewmens were cutting down the forests to make room for their farms, or they weren't treating the monsters fairly, or some other reason. There wasn't a lot of clarity on why the monsters rose up, but we do know that they wanted to reclaim the land. However righteous or devious their motives were, the monsters didn't win the battle, mainly because they didn't have a wand of their own. I'm tempted to believe that the monsters had the moral high ground because in a very brief scene, we see the monsters run into the forest which the mewmens then light on fire. Likely in an attempt to kill them. I mean, this is the Great Monster Massacre after all. At the same time, it seems a little hypocritical for the mewmens to do this, mainly because they're technically monsters.
How?
In Puberty, we learn that Star becomes a love-crazed butterfly for, well, until 3:57 p.m., or maybe never. Way to give us hope, you pudding-loving glossary. Getting back to the point though, this massacre gives the monsters a moral obligation to want the wand, and it might even give us some insight into their past. Ludo has wanted the wand to allow him to put his big boy pants on.
So pretty much for his own personal gain.
Yeah, and that leads me to compare him to a child who's been taught that the monsters want the wand without fully understanding what happened in the past. While on the other hand, it appears that Toffee wants to even the playing field. He doesn't want the wand to fall into someone else's hands, no, he wants to destroy it. Then again, I think there's more to this scene than first thought. When the wand starts to explode, Toffee is able to see it cracking.
What does this have to do with anything?
If this show's taught me anything, it's that the animators can be quick yet meaningful with their facial expressions. Take for example the intro. When Star goes through the portal to the underworld, we see her scowl at Tom, alluding to her distaste for him. Or how in this scene we see Star and Marco confronted with a white beam. While they're both on the ready to attack, Marco is inspecting it while Star is smiling, displaying how different their characters can be when it comes to confrontation. Star is always bubbly and undercautious while Marco is at the ready.
So what does this have to do with Toffee?
Well, when the wand starts cracking, rather than running, Toffee smiles. This could mean a couple of different things. Firstly, he might see it as a bonus that the wand explodes or eradicates itself from the world. Since it was the driving force behind the Great Monster Massacre, it seems like a reasonable conclusion, but I think he planned for this to happen.
How could he have possibly planned for this to happen?
Well, Toffee's been seen as a very thorough character. He intends to replace Ludo from the get-go. I mean, look at how easily he gets into the castle. He understands these characters and how they'll act and react to certain situations. Look at how easily he puts the cameras into Star's home, knowing full well that she sees them as a prop. Look at how he's prepared to make Buff Frog, one of Ludo's most loyal servants, look like a fool. Then, after getting his main hurdle out of the way, he turns the rest of the monsters against Ludo with ease. Toffee does his research on these kind of things. If he knows that the first spell that Star was ever taught destroys the wand, what else might he know? The crack and subsequent shard we see at the end of the episode might have been unintended consequences for the wand exploding, but since Toffee was so devious about it, I'm led to believe that there was more to his plan. Perhaps in the next season, the shard will be picked up by the monsters and put into another wand.
What?
I know that sounds a little bit far-fetched, but I think it's a possibility. The monsters didn't have a fighting chance before, but with this wand, they might be able to fight back. That being said, at this point, I don't know what's going to happen in the show, so feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these videos. And with all that said, I will see all of you in the next video.